It's amazing how many people are stalked in their lives. Unfortunately, in today's world, stalking has become more common than most people realize. Each year, 6.6 million people are stalked in the US alone, and nearly 3 in 4 victims know their stalker in some capacity. Even though both men and women can fall prey to a stalker, women are nearly 3 times more likely to be stalked than men. So tonight, here is just some of those stories. I'm a male on the large side, so creepers tend to leave me alone. When I was 19, I lived in Kentucky, pretty far from my northern Michigan hometown. It was this little town called Pikeville, where there was very little crime. I actually kind of miss it and want to go back, but I digress. My family came down to visit me for my birthday that year, and we agreed to meet up at the Hardys in town in the morning after they got in. I got there earlier than them, me being the type to show up 15 minutes early, and them being the types to always show up late. As I was standing outside waiting, this guy walks up to me. If you've ever lived in a place like this, you know everyone's super friendly, so it didn't strike me as odd when he started talking to me. After he found out I went to the college, he said he saw me at a party. This is impossible as I've never once gone to a party. When he found out I'm a gamer nerd, he started talking about playing D&D all the time. He kept taking sips out of some sort of alcohol bottle. Mind you, it's 10 AM at this point, and he kept offering me some. There were a few other things like this. He started talking about how he lost all his friends because he got into drugs, and I felt a little bad for him. He asked if I wanted to walk around for a bit, and since I knew my family wouldn't be there for a while, I went. That coupled with the fact that I hadn't had any encounters like this before, and the lack of crime disarmed that warning part of my brain. So we walked and talked for a little while, maybe 10 minutes, before I realised we were in a shady looking part of town. I'd never even realised there were shady parts of this small town at all, but here we were. We stepped in front of a house that looked long abandoned with this dark, narrow, sketchy alley next to it. He starts talking about how he knows 2 girls that live here, and how they like to party and whatnot. He tells me about how DTF they are, and asks if I want to meet them. Okay, so I'm in a shitty part of town, with a sketchy guy I don't know who was just talking about doing hard drugs, and no one knows I'm here. And now he wants me to go into an obviously abandoned house under the guise of meeting some ladies. I declined his offer, and I immediately said I needed to get back as my family was probably waiting. He seemed a little upset about this, and then asked if I could help him move a pool table into his van, which was conveniently parked down the alley. I declined this as well. This is when he began to reach into his jacket pocket. I realised just how much this guy looked like he might stab me, and this terrified me. At this moment, my stepmom did the only kind thing she's ever done for me. She called me to see where I was. I took this as an opportunity to hastily exit. The creep followed me for 3 blocks. When I was 8 years old, I went to Walmart with my dad. He needed to shop for groceries, and obviously, that was super boring. I told my dad I wanted to look at Barbies by myself instead, and he said I could if I paid attention to the time and promised to meet him up front in an hour. I walked over to the toy section at the back of the store and spent the next 20 minutes or so trying to decide which Barbie or Bratz doll I was going to beg for. As I was looking at the dolls, I became more aware of someone else standing just outside the aisle. It was a tall man, probably in his late 60s. He had a handlebar moustache and was wearing wire-rimmed glasses, high-waisted jeans, high-water jeans, a button-up jean shirt, and suspenders. He stood still with his arms at his sides and stared at me. Beginning to feel uncomfortable and Barbie's forgotten, I walked around the other side of the aisle and started heading towards the crafts instead. I figured it was nothing, and that he'd just leave me alone if I walked away. However, a few minutes into the serious business of looking at different types of beads and string, I felt someone watching me again. I turned my head to look at the end of the aisle. Sure enough, he followed me, and he was standing and staring at me again, hands open at his sides. My face immediately got hot and I began to sweat. I knew I needed to find my dad. I walked briskly to the end of the aisle opposite the man and started heading towards the front of the store. About halfway to the front of the store, I noticed the man was following me, staying on the opposite side of each aisle. When I looked back at him, he began to quickly cross the aisle ahead of us to get to my side. I started running as fast as I could. I could hear him jogging behind me. At this point, I knew my dad wouldn't be up the front of the store for at least another 15 minutes, but I didn't know where else to go. I kept running towards the front of the store. So did the man. I made it to the front and stood by the bathrooms right in front of the cash registers. Luckily it was busy and the man couldn't follow me too closely without it being obvious. I anxiously waited for my dad while the man anxiously paced and watched me. When my dad finally got there, this man walked away. I clung to my dad's jacket sleeve on the way out of the store. It always makes my stomach churn when I think about what could have happened to me if I hadn't gotten away. It happened 1 year ago. I went to see an orchestra with my friend which finished around 10:30 PM. She goes home and it was a beautiful night, so I decided to walk around this area of the city which I rarely go to, Tokyo Station. On a semi-empty street, this 40-ish-year-old Japanese guy dressed up like every other salaryman stops me to ask me how to get to this subway line called Hibiya. A bit odd, but whatever. I pull out Google Map and give him directions on my phone. When I look up, I realize he wasn't listening and looked at me with these creepy eyes and creepy smile. He then asked, "Where are you going?" I tell him I'm meeting my boyfriend close by. That was a lie. He asks if he can walk with me. I firmly say no, my boyfriend's waiting for me. I turn around and walk away. Suddenly I hear him cry behind me, begging me in English. He was literally on his knees. I freaked out and walked away really quickly. When I looked back, he got back on his feet and was walking in the same direction as me. Now I know I should have been more freaked out, but it does happen from time to time. Random Japanese guys ask to walk with me and talk. I'm mixed Asian but look more foreign. They give up quickly after I firmly show it won't happen. It's usually harmless. I get to the busy train station, which is basically thousands of people like fish schooling. I move in random directions for 20 minutes to lose him. By that time, I'm pretty certain he couldn't have followed me in this crowd. I relax and stupidly go back to my plan of talking a walk by myself. I walk through the gardens of the Imperial Palace, which has a huge park with no lights, and no one to be seen at this time of night. I take dark empty streets. I'd forgotten about the creepy guy and just admired my surroundings, the architecture, and the quietness. It's past midnight now, so it's time to catch the last train home. I go downstairs to the closest station. I decide to stop and look down on my phone to check how to get home from there. That's when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was the fucking creepy guy, with even more insane eyes and smile. That's when I fully realized how psycho this guy was, because he followed me through a crowd of thousands of people, a dark park, and empty streets for over an hour. And guess what? Hibiya didn't pass this fucking station. I yell at the top of my lungs and run away. He full on runs to catch me. I pretend to go down the stairs to a platform and then quickly hide behind a column. I see him run past me frantically searching for me with his crazy eyes, but he doesn't look back. He doesn't see me. I run back up the stairs and get on a different train. It took a few minutes for the train to take off, but finally the doors closed and off it went. I was safe now, but I didn't realize how safe until when I looked up at the doors. There he was, standing at the doors just as they closed. I work in a restaurant where there's usually 2 people working night shift. We also have a lot of female employees, including myself. Almost all of us are under the age of 18. So 2 days ago while I was at work, a man came in and went straight to the bathroom. It happens a lot, so I didn't think much of it. 30 minutes later, he emerged from the bathroom and his eyes are red. I'd completely forgotten about him by then. When I saw him, I had a weird feeling of unease wash over me. He came up to me and asked what time we closed. He had a very thick Spanish accent and it was hard for me to understand. I told him our closing time and he responded with,
"I should come back later then,"
and walked out. He then stood in our parking lot for 10 minutes, eventually walking over to the nearby grocery store. I was pretty freaked out and told my co-worker what had happened. We both decided to check the bathroom out to see why he was in there so long. Luckily, we didn't find anything strange. We finished our night on edge. I texted a friend and told her about the weird encounter, and she showed me a story about a sex trafficking incident not even 10 minutes away. After hearing that, I called my parents and asked if they would sit in the parking lot after we closed while we took out trash and went to our cars. When I got home, my stepdad told me that he saw a man that matched the description just sitting by the grocery store nearby. We called the owner of the store and alerted him. He said he'd check out the cameras and ask whoever was working that night if they remember him. Turns out, he went over there and did some sketchy stuff too. I don't know what this man's intentions were, but I've never been scared by a customer like that before. From what I saw, I'm pretty sure he was on foot too, which is strange since we're right by a highway. This happened when I was home alone one night. I live with my mother and we rarely lock the door. Now this is quite common in our little small town as it's quite safe. I was in the shower and when I was finished, I came out and noticed a presence. There was someone under my bed. I knew that I didn't have time to run to the bathroom. I picked up the phone and called the police. But I knew I had to be crafty to not let the person under the bed know that I saw them. I acted like I was calling my mum so that they wouldn't know I'm calling the police and do something crazy, but also to know that I wouldn't be alone anymore. "Mum, are you close? I need you to pick something up."
"Sir, you've contacted the wrong person."
"Mum, I asked, are you close? I need help with something."
"Sir, are you unable to talk but need help?"
"Yes, Mum."
"Can you tell me your address?"
"You'll need to put your name and 123 West Crescent Street on the envelope, Mum."
"Thank you, sir. I'll send help immediately."
The second I put the phone down, the person got out from under my bed. It was my psychotic ex-boyfriend. He was in jail the last time I saw him. Now, he's standing right in front of me. I tried not to show him I was scared of him.
"Look, I don't want to disturb you, but did you get my letter?"
"Yeah, I need some time to think about it. Would you like some tea?" I forced a smile and willed the police to come quicker in my head. Sure enough, someone knocked on my door. When I opened the door, I couldn't stop my tears and barely stopped myself from hugging the police officers. I explained to them the situation while my ex claimed I was lying. They searched him and found a knife concealed in his pocket and a Beretta, so they charged him with carrying a weapon he didn't have a license for and trespassing. That brings us to the end. For anyone to experience a situation with a stalker, I guess it's like your real life horror movie, isn't it? It's like something that, it's a living nightmare, and just these stories alone were enough to just give me the creeps, you know? Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Give the video a like if it creeped you out, or if you just liked it. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe to hear more stories kinda like this, creepypastas, true scary stories. There's loads to come. Alright guys, well I'm signing off, so you all have a good night, and I'll see you on the next one.